But as a reminder, our master's program is based on the 4 levels of consciousness. And if you remember those, it's the 4 levels of consciousness in our evolutionary cycle. The first one being the mortal, or usually the victim level, where we say, why me? Why me? I'm always the victim. The second level is the metaphysician level, which is because we know through consciousness that we can make things happen. We can manifest things. And so we label that stage by me. But one of the catches is that we get into that phase knowing that we can manifest things and make things happen, and sometimes we try to push it and tell God what to do rather than allow God to work through us. And so the third level is, of course, entitled Through Me, or the mystic level, and that's when we realize that the Father within does the work, that we know that it's the God within that's doing the work. And then the fourth level is the master level, and it is as me, I am the master, I am one with God. So that is the level of consciousness that you're striving for in this program. And just as a little heads up, I want to tell you that I've also identified a 5th level, and which we will discuss on the last Sunday of the month. So you'll have to come to find out what that's all about when we come back. But just a quick review of where we came from and where we are at this point in time. The first week we took our entrance exam. You remember that? To see where we currently are. And realizing that wherever you are on your spiritual journey, it is the correct place to be and the correct starting point for you. And to be able to rise to that next level of consciousness. And does anybody remember what the entrance exam was? LRE. The first one was, how do we respond to life experiences as they come our way? The R was our relationship with God. And what was the E?
Earth stewardship.
Stewardship to our earth, yes. Earthly stewardship. And I want to refer to Ernest Holmes' writings in the Science of Mind textbook on page 271. This is what he says. We can advance only by going from where we are to the place where we would like to be. The way to work is to begin right where you are, and through constantly applying ourselves to the truth, we gradually increase in wisdom and understanding, for in this way alone will come good results, and they will be obtained. If day by day we have a greater understanding and a clearer concept, if daily we are realizing more of truth and applying it to our actions, then we are on the right path, and eventually we shall be made free. So it's important to know where you are in this level of consciousness and the 4 levels of consciousness. So keep that in mind as we go, because you've probably already progressed to some point if you've been here each Sunday. And then last week we explored living from this oneness by listening to divine guidance. Remember that? And how we hone our ability to discern divine guidance from what our ego or fear or other emotions are dealing with. And we did it in a 3-step process. I don't know if you remember the 3-step process, but the first step is to be able to listen. And the second one is either to follow the internal guidance that you're getting or not to follow it. And remember, Jonah didn't follow it. And what happened to him? So we're knowing, we do learn to listen, and then we learn to follow or not, or we make the choice to follow or not follow. And then we look at what the results are, what the outcome is. And if you learn to follow the divine guidance, the results are usually positive and in your favor. And if you do that a couple of times, you'll really know the difference. You'll know the difference. So today, we're going to be learning a little bit more about how to achieve this degree. But I want to remind you that really earning the degree isn't the important thing or really what matters. It's the experience that you have along the way. And what really matters is that we really operate at this master's level of living. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And meaning that we really take the spiritual principles we've learned in this master's program and we apply them to our lives, our daily lives. And if we were to ask the average person on the street what master's level living is, they might tell us that it means we've mastered the ability to have things. Isn't that true? Wouldn't people say, well, if you've mastered that master's level, you know how to manifest things and you know how to get things? In fact, the world would tell us that success is based on what we manifest or what we have, don't they? But that's the very lowest rung of mastery. Not because there's anything wrong with having or obtaining those things that you desire, but because if all we do is have, we quickly find that that is very simple and meaningless. We really can't have enough stuff to bring true joy and meaning. Do you realize what I'm saying? Another rung on the ladder of mastery might be to be a master in what we do or have done. In other words, being very successful and very skilled. And this too is very fine. But it can be empty, especially when we no longer do what we did that gave our life meaning. Think about those people that have retired and they've gotten the honors, and then when they retire, they're not doing what they're skilled to do, and they feel like their life has lost meaning. Just talk to some of the retired people and you'll find that out. Or talk to parents whose children have grown up and left home. If they centered their lives strictly on raising the children and what they could do for them, then they really experience what we now call the empty nest syndrome. But there's really another level of mastery, and that begins to emerge with the diligent and disciplined application of the spiritual principles that we teach and really practicing them. And that level is who you really are, or who we are, is the level of mastery. And as we grow into this master's level of living, who we are becomes more open and more generous and kinder and more patient and more loving and understanding and forgiving and prosperous, and this is who I am. Have you known people that have changed after they've learned the principles, science of mind principles, and how they seem to be just a different person after they learn to live the principles? So at the master's level of living, who I am is one who fully and completely relies on God, and one who has learned how to really and truly let go and let God. That's truly living at the mastery level. Rather than feeling that way, rather than fully and completely relying on God, rather than learning how to really and truly let go and let God, we might sometimes feel like Atlas holding up the world. Have you felt like that? It was on your shoulders. And we carry whatever that load is. And we know this by the anxiety level that we live in. What is the science teaching us? The cortisol levels that we all produce, and where we feel upset and under stress, and where we feel concerned. and where the real irritation or the rub is, that's where we've not turned it over to God, and where we haven't let go and let God. We're still carrying the burden. When we hear those words, let go and let God, many of us think maybe two different ways. I'll let go and then I'll let God. I'll let go and then I'll let God. But that's not how it works. It's in the letting go that we actually let God. And I think probably the letting go is one of the most difficult steps to the whole process. But it's a tightrope that we kind of, a spiritual practice that we walk, especially as practitioners and lay practitioners. But we seek that perfect place of balance where we're able to let go. And you know, it doesn't mean surrendering your desire or the outcome that you're seeking. That's not what we mean by letting go. You're not giving up. It means surrendering your attachment, that it has to come out either the way you think it should, or even that the outcome needs to be exactly as you determine that it needs to be. Because in those situations, you're telling God what to do. You're not letting God work through you. You don't surrender the desire for what you're wanting to achieve. You surrender the attachment and allow the desire to happen. Is that making sense to you? And so you give it over to God and let God manifest it in divine time, in the divine right way. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't do anything. You do everything you know how to do. You work diligently as you can. You put your full heart towards something, but you still let God do it, and you let God take over. If there's any anxiety, you give it to God, because you can't carry it anyway, and none of us have the wisdom of the infinite when we are focused on our finite world, do we? We don't have that knowledge when we're so focused on what's going on right in front of us. So it's only when we let go that we have access to the divine mind from which all these ideas and inspirations come. It's by letting go. And remember, Mary Morrissey in her classes said God's first currency is ideas. Remember that? This concept works in the minuscule details of our lives, and it works in the magnitude of our lives, and that's called the Master's level of living. It works in all phases. And just to go back for a moment